Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye? You'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a rope? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast. Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, the show where we like to find the best game within a really specific category. For example, this week we're looking for the best game where your character stays wet for a bit after getting wet. Tom, you're a bit wet. You're a bit...
I don't remember. Was that the intro last time he did this? That sounds meaner.
I had a shower like 30 minutes ago, so I mean...
Connor's there showering on work time. He doesn't care.
I was having my lunch. I had my allocated legal 1 hour lunch break. I had my shower.
I'm fucking soaking right now. It's so hot.
It is too hot.
This is unpleasant.
Yeah. I've only put a top on because I'm fucking on a call with you guys. Otherwise,
not only a top on though, right?
No, seriously, only a top. Yeah. I'm not standing up on this call.
Yeah, don't stand up.
Sharif's in the hottest country out of all of us, and you seem to be doing all right.
He's got aircon. He's probably
you wouldn't know it in this room. Yeah, it's funny because the thing that everyone complains about here indoors, it's too cold. Especially if you go to if you go to the cinema, that's definitely going to be chilly. So you want to have like something.
I was thinking about cinema aircon this morning. There's nothing like cinema aircon.
I love it.
Oh,
I love it.
It's the best. It's the best. I could live there.
Just go to see any old horse shit just to sit there right now.
Yeah,
God. What's the worst film in the cinemas right now? Like 4 tickets for that, please. Okay, right. So games where your character gets wet and then they get out the water and they're still wet for a bit. And when they're really sophisticated, you can see them sort of drying in stages. You can see their skin gets dry, but then their clothes are still a little bit wet and they kind of dry in patches, and it's really... Oh, it's such a realistic effect, and it's very clever. And I first remember seeing it in Uncharted, which I hope nobody's picked.
There was a big thing back when graphics were getting better.
Yeah,
it was always the big thing, right? Close-ups of people, usually sports people, with a bit of sweat on their head.
Yeah,
that was a big deal for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, water in games has always been some, like, for a lot of people, water is like the big fucking. The only graphical sort of showcase they care about. People would be like, it's crap, it's good water. Somebody said that to me about Morrowind once. What? I didn't like it. It was good water though. And it's like, it's not even got good water. What are you on about? But yeah,
it's always like the sweaty foreheads and rain slick pavements are the two metrics.
Rain slick pavements and sweaty foreheads, man. That's gaming. That's gaming.
Just like the yardstick that you measure like advancement. Like last year was RoboCop, Rogue City, and it's like, oh my god, look how wet these streets are.
Yeah.
And in Xbox 360 days, it was like.
How well does it depict something being like uncomfortable to stand in or uncomfortable to just exist as?
When I went to play the Avatar Whatever's of Pandora game, which we did a video on, Jim, I remember because we have these like hefty PCs, and I must have spent like a minute of the footage that was sent to me just like staring at the water because it looked great. Like
it's really ray traced water.
That is good water.
You see fish going through it and stuff. It's sick. It's good.
What I love is that the last episode I started off and I was just having an idle chat with you and Kelsey about who'd been on the podcast, and then Tom was like, "This is the podcast equivalent of the weather. What are we on about?" And we're literally just talking about precipitation now, and Tom's fine with it.
It's on topic because it's a topic. It's about wet things.
Yeah.
And this is about water.
All right. After the big 100th episode, which is coming soon, our next topic is best game with shit weather. More on that later. Also, I've got a belter of a pick for this episode, which you guys are not going to believe, right? And I guarantee nobody else has picked it.
I hope I've picked it. I really hope I've done it.
You won't have picked it. You guaranteed you won't have picked it. I bet at least 2 of you haven't even heard of it. I bet Tom has though, because he's really old. And also, if you want to hear what my pick is, and if you want to hear these 3 rip it apart in a manner that I would say is akin to workplace bullying, you need to subscribe to the paid version of this podcast and become a member of VG247 by going to the website, clicking on the support us link, and all the details are there. If you're not a paid subscriber, unfortunately you don't get to find out what I've got to say about anything, which is
might be for the better.
For a lot of people it's probably preferable, but never mind.
If you just want more of me, you can also subscribe. If Jim isn't a big enough draw,
subscribe for more
in
time.
certain episodes, you get more of me, you get more of Connor, you get more of Sharif, right?
I reckon we get a few subs if I promise to host this as Tam McGleish in the future, but that's never going to happen. Okay, right, let's start with, because I've not heard from him for a while, Sharif. What is the best game? As a man who often tells us that you crave rain in many ways, because you come from a hot country, you live in another equally hot country, and every time it rains in the UK and we're all complaining about it, you're like, that sounds amazing. What are you talking about? Water from the sky? So I'd love to hear what your take on this is.
The guys like looking up. A bunch of games actually these days, and have been for a while. They have this, I don't know the technical term for it, but it's a wet shader, basically. Where if you get in the water, whatever parts of your clothes that the water touches get wet, and every game kind of messes with like, okay, just to keep it flowing, that's going to dry off really quickly. And some games like leave it, like Tomb Raider does it, Uncharted, as you mentioned earlier, does it. And that stuff is fine and cool and amazing, but it's not really material to the game. It's just a visual treat for you, which is fine. But the game that I picked,
let's be clear,
it is absolutely. But the game that I picked plays that into its mechanics to what I would call an unusual and maybe unnecessary degree. I'm talking this may not surprise you to learn, but it is a survival game. It's a stick and a rock game, which they love their simulation, your hunger and thirst meters and all that stuff. But the game goes not the extra mile, the extra country mile. Is country mile longer than a mile? Hopefully. Nautical mile, whatever is longest. To simulate the effects of how wet your character's clothes are. I have to be very careful with my phrasing. The game that I'm talking about is called Scum, which is a survival game from 2018. It's been in early access since 2018.
Okay.
It's changed publisher. It used to be published by Devolver. Was a breakout hit the year that it came out. Was Devolver's biggest launch ever. The game has a very sophisticated system that measures how wet your clothes are, how to deal with that, and the effects that has on your character. So not only do your clothes get wet from rain, which, okay, fair enough. If you wade through a pond, if you wade through any water at all, that also gets wet. But because of the temperature and because depending on the clothes that you're wearing, the material of the clothes and the environment that you're in can affect how much sweat your body is producing. And that also counts towards that, let's call it wetness meter. So pretty much anything with moisture in it that can touch your person is calculated in the game. And there's if you hover over any gear piece, you'll see like, okay, it will say like durability. It will say, a bunch of other things. And then it will have a stat that says, what is it called in game? Anyway, it's basically how dry or wet it is. The more wet, just like in real life, a piece of clothing is or a piece of gear, the heavier it is. And so if you're crossing a body of water where you can't physically walk on the floor, on the seafloor, you can drown. And so you have to take your clothes off if you want to cross a piece of water, a body of water for whatever reason, and your clothes are too wet, you have to take them off to cross and not sink because their weight is exponentially higher. But the game just simulates it to such a degree that it was one of those things where, I have, you could call them instant turn-offs for me. Like one of those is for games. I don't know why I needed to clarify that, but let's say someone showed a screenshot of the World of Warcraft hotkey bar where it's like 6 different rows, things on the side. I look at that and I'm just like, it's the Seinfeld meme of like him getting off the chair.
Connor's like, sign me up.
No, I'm having
flashbacks
like to how bad that is. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's the thing. Like I just look at that and I'm just like, I don't care if this is the best game in the world. I am never going to play it. I don't care.
Yeah.
One other thing, like I have a bunch of these. Like for example, the Path of Exile skill tree. So whenever an ARPG comes up and then you do the thing, it's like, oh look, we zoomed out with the Path of Exile thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. I don't want to play that game ever. Thank you very much. The incessant level of simulation that those survival games have. Not that I'm a fan of them to begin with, but the way how committed, the way that they go about simulating certain aspects of nature, I just look at that as this sort of like you could not make this any less interesting for me if you tried. Like they're simulating body weight, they're simulating like metabolism, they're simulating a bunch of things that survival games that usually, even the most hardcore of them, usually would look at and be like, okay, not even us can be this crazy. Or calm down. But Scum is doing it, and so yeah, you can stay wet for a time. You can die from being too heavy if you cross a body of water with your wet clothes. You can get the sweat trapped under your body because you're wearing, I don't know, some sort of weird fabric that traps the polyester or something that traps the sweat instead of getting it to dry off. It's a fascinating thing if you never heard of it.
Sounds like you've shot yourself in the foot here a bit.
It sounds like
really interesting though, because
this podcast being about the best game, and you basically described a game nobody wants to play.
It sounds like
I tried out Scum.
Yeah.
When it was first revealed, it seemed like this wacky spin on like survival games, like convicts, I think. And there's this big robot that can just rush you to death. And I was like, okay, let's give this a try. And it is kind of just like stat overload for perverts. Like it's just like tracking everything. And some people really love that.
The sort of people that look at survival games and say, you're not simulating enough elements of nature.
Yeah, it doesn't. This doesn't strike me as harrowing enough. I think if you were actually in this situation, swimming would be a drowning risk. Obviously,
exactly. What's your metabolism rate? What's your body weight affect? How's your body weight affect?
It's like right. I'm going to ask a disgusting question now. Have any of these games made needing a shite a mechanic, but not just needing a shite, but like, being able to use it as fertilizer and stuff?
I don't know about fertilization, but taking a poop, taking a shit is part of the Scum's one of Scum's mechanics.
Can you do anything with the shit? Can you like use it to can you burn it for a torch or? But
it was, funnily enough, it was one of the selling features because that's the thing that they said that you needed to simulate because you have to pass over the
I love it. I love it.
Jim's turned around. He hears about jobbies and he's like, "This is like my game."
Is it like a cat survival thing where you have to bury it, otherwise people can detect it? Because like. Put me in touch with these people. All right, okay.
A Scum Pro coming across a campaign like someone's shit here like 2 hours ago.
Here's playing Scum in 2024.
Someone's done a shite here and it's recent, still warm. Okay, right. So we've got Scum, which I believe is a big abbreviation, isn't it? SCUM, isn't that? Is that right?
It is not an abbreviation, nor is it an acronym. It's just all caps.
Yeah, Jim.
There we go.
Oh, it's just caps. All right, okay.
It's just caps because I
misremembered.
Because they're criminals, Jim.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sure I saw artwork for this game where it was like S.C. But I might be thinking about something else. That might be a comic, actually.
Not that I
ignore everything I've just said. Connor, right? Aye. What is the best game where people get wet and then get less wet?
I'm worried.
Well, a recent story. First, for video viewers, I have new glasses. You can see them on my face.
What happened to the old glasses?
I've still got them, but they're like gross and they're like in the drawer somewhere just in case I manage to break two pairs of glasses.
Gross.
Because they're like 7 years old. They're like old.
No, but you can clean glasses, right?
For sure. But like compared to these new shiny glasses, like not a fan.
It's not you're not. Like glasses being gross is a thing you can do something about. Tom is saying without
and I have done things about them, but these are like they got scratches on them and shit, and like paint's falling off them. I got these new glasses, got them fitted, and I went to, I showed my family them, and my mum is lovely, and she's like, "That was really nice," and my sister's like, "I don't want to say anything," and I'm like, "What do you? No, come on, be honest. What do you think of them?" And she's like, "You kind of look like Jeffrey Dahmer."
What?
And I'm like, okay, That's not very nice, but that's fine.
Didn't they make him hot in the new series?
I mean, that's kind of... I wasn't super downtrodden because he has recently gone through a bit of a revival.
He's had a redemption arc.
There are more fans of Jeffrey Dahmer now than perhaps any time.
It's like Deep Space Nine.
You know what this is? This is a result of all the fucking true crime podcasts where people are obsessing over that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the fucking Tumblrification of everything, isn't it?
Yes, this is the result of that. Where it's it's cool to be a fan of a serial killer and be a fan of a tragic event that happened to real people like 20 years ago. It's like, okay, cool, amazing.
And she's like, and you know, you look a bit more nerdy, and I'm like, that's fine. It comes with the sort of what I do and my life choices. But it's not the first time this sort of thing has happened. My dad has told me I look a bit like Peter Sutcliffe in his later years as well.
That's not true.
That's true.
Is that also serial killer?
Hell.
Yeah.
Is he also a serial killer? I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Peter Sutcliffe was the Yorkshire Ripper, right?
Yorkshire Ripper.
Yeah.
And look,
it's horrific.
Isn't it just a 70s style? Like, don't just people just look?
That's what I'm saying.
This is it. People just
It's
like
a style thing.
those. I mean, look.
Yeah.
In fairness to your sister, like Jeffrey Dahmer, from what I've thought of him, wore similar glasses to that. But as Sharif says, that's just because everyone fucking did in the 70s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's like the toothbrush mustache, you know?
Exactly. So being being told I look kind of like a serial killer. It's only happened twice.
That's awful.
And it's not a lot.
It's only happened
but
twice.
it's two more times than I thought it would happen.
It's also by your immediate family as well. Let's not point.
Yeah, they know it's all banter. And I went home, holding this to my chest, and I booted up Divinity: Original Sin 2 to kind of take my mind off it. That game's amazing, and part of the perks of that game is that it's got a really in-depth elemental system. And you can like interact with the environment a lot. So people are stacking up boxes all the way to the top of the map. People are throwing crates at people and bombs and pushing chairs into tables and all sorts of radical stuff. But it really interacts well with combat as well. So in Divinity: Original Sin 2, if you get wet, you're more like the fire damage isn't as much of a bigger deal, and you can get electrocuted and stuff. And it's mint, basically. It's fantastic. It really adds a level to that sort of genre that I think is really special. And
it
Larian
is really
made
systems focused, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was made by Larian.
Yeah.
It's great. The foundations of that game went on to be, used in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
and
which
so,
is essentially Divinity: Original Sin 3 by any other name.
Is it worth? This is off top. This is not on topic of the podcast, but I own both this game and Baldur's Gate 3, and I've played neither of them because that's what I do.
Yeah.
Is it worth playing Divinity 2, Original Sin 2, or just going straight to Baldur's Gate 3?
Yeah, because it's got its own different tone of the story. It's got a different focus in terms of like its qualities.
Oh yeah, it's like
Baldur's Gate 3 is all about like this interweaving narrative.
Yeah.
And like how your choices can make like vast differences. Divinity: Original Sin 2 is more of it still has that because it's like an RPG, but it's more linear in its approach. And that means that like combat very much is kind of more like a puzzle than
it's not a lot of dice rolls like Baldur's Gate. I feel like because Baldur's Gate is trying to simulate the rules of the D&D.
Exactly,
So if you don't like that,
yeah,
or as exposed maybe or organized.
I guess it's more of a CRPG that way because Baldur's Gate is really like unabashedly trying to simulate the D&D experience, the tabletop experience, whereas Divinity is just like, here's a cool world, go and kill people in it. I think that they're really good, but I think I've decided to take, just because I like being contrary, I've decided to take the attitude that Baldur's Gate 3 is shite, even though I don't believe that, but I just keep saying it to people and it annoys people because that's what I'm like. That's what I'm like, Connor. But Divinity: Original Sin, the way it handles elemental stuff is really good, and obviously wetness is a part of that. Oh, that's a horrible word, isn't it? Wetness.
But it's so good that like you're going to specific fights, and if you know fire's going to be a problem, you'll have like a really strong character just carry a barrel of water.
Yeah.
Or like, and you just throw it on yourself.
Just get everyone wet.
Get everyone wet. Like you
get a wet t-shirt competition going before you
save before a fight. You pull the barrel out, you break it when all your party's around it, so you all have like several turns of the wet buff on you, and then you go into the combat. And like, it's great. It's perfect.
Which I think is frankly, that's genius.
It's really good.
All right. Okay, let's move on to Tom. Is your game as good as something that lets you get moist before you fight somebody with a fire
Worse
style?
than wet.
Wow.
That's a worse word than wet.
You might be quite close to what this game actually does. With that.
Uh-oh.
So I thought about this for a while because I only knew about coming on this podcast literal minutes ago. Like, it was just, can you do this, please? I was like, I'm very busy. But you were like, please, the podcast needs you. So I was fine. I'll drop other things to do this.
It's not quite what I said, but okay.
So I thought about moments in my life where I've been incredibly wet. And I thought, right, it's Ring Fit Adventure, right? Because I got Ring Fit Adventure over probably COVID time, right? It was a big home fitness era for lots of people. I'm not a fit man, I would say. So probably on the unfit end of the scale.
Yeah.
And even like Ring Fit Adventure is not the most high like intensity thing you can do. But it does get quite intense at points. And if you're not a fit man, which I'm sure at least a few of us on this call can sort of testify to,
Everyone except
any
Sharif,
form of movement can cause heat. And sweat, right? So
are you just discovering the human anatomy? This is like, okay.
I've known about it for a long time. Just letting people aware, making them aware of. For some people, just moving around can cause heat.
Yep.
I'm not looking at anyone in particular on this call, but a few of us, right? It's a problem for us. Hence why, like, you may have seen some people on this call almost topless before because it's hot, right? So Ring Fit, you do this, like, you've got the ring, the actual ring, and you do things with that to do exercise and stuff. And it's about doing the exercises as you go, like squats and like squeezing the thing and sit-ups, whatever else. You do all these things in the lead up to these fights against, I can't remember what he's called, like he's a big muscle demon guy, right, at the end of each level. And by the time I got to this thing, I was like, this is me as a paperboy. Same feeling of like, this is not a pleasant experience to be living, because I was quite drenched in sweat.
So what you're submitting is that in Ring Fit you are the player character.
You are literally physically doing the things, right? You are the character. Of all the games where you can be the character, this is the one where you are the actual person. You are the one doing all the moves, etc.
Okay, this is brilliant. Let's move to the pick something phase, because I've got an argument against that. That's very watertight. Pun not intended. Okay, Tom, so you're submitting that you in the real world, you yourself, your body is the player character of Ring Fit. Well, that's not true though, is it? Because there is a player character model in Ring Fit.
There is, but that is not, that's just, so
that's your avatar in the game world.
You can't be, if I'm sure if they could have put your own body in the game, they would have done, but this is the best they could do. You're not just like pressing buttons, are you? You're doing the moves. When it says do the yoga pose, you're doing the yoga pose.
If you pick like a Connect game, where it's like see-through hands that are your hands punching some guy 100 times.
Yeah, if I get a bit sweaty playing Morrowind, right? Because it's really exciting, as you all know. Would I be able to submit that?
No, completely different.
Why not? Because
you're not doing the actual actions. You're not being the person. You're just like pressing some buttons.
Yeah, but it's completely different. It's the same thing that you're going through an interface, pressing a button or moving an actuator.
To move in Ring Fit, you literally run. Like you run on the spot, right?
Yeah.
It is the most. Like it is you,
but
as
you
the
are
character.
But
it's
you
not
are
just you
going
playing
through.
As a character.
You are going through a human-computer interface to play that in the same way as you are controlling.
When you get
on an electronic level, the distinction is nothing.
No, it's completely different, because when you get like the things that you've done 50 sit-ups today. You've actually done them. It's not just your character has done 50 sit-ups because you pressed a button 50 times on when the little bar went over the line.
That it's a difference. It doesn't really make any difference. You have, once again, I think the Tom was robbed people are going to have trouble with this one, honestly, because like
you're justify it.
They just say it. They just say
this
it.
Is the best pick by a long way because
it's not.
It is. It's actual. Once again, I've taken the topic and extended it to the real world, which no one else seems able to do.
I did.
That is true. That is true. But
I did it. Does it not count?
Does what count? That you said you did it.
My anecdote, like my real world anecdote about Divinity Original Sin 2.
Yeah, but yours isn't the same, is it? Yours was very oddly tied to the fact that your family made fun of your glasses, right? And then you went back and played it. That's completely. That's just, if anything, completely made up, right?
I mean, that's a Eurogamer article, isn't it?
It is sadly 100%.
Divinity
true.
Original Sin 2 helped me come to terms with the fact that my glasses were the same as Jeffrey Dahmer's. That's a Eurogamer long piece, right? Okay, well, I've got to pick one, right? And Scum sounds interesting, but it sounds horrible to play. And even you yourself, Sharif, at one point was like, I hate it.
That's the thing, but I appreciate it so much. Like they're they're committed. And what other game that you can think of, like The Long Dark and some other survival games, try to simulate being wet. But no one goes as far as Scum, and as far as I know or I have seen, and I feel like this is worth. It's worth celebrating. And it's like, no, we're gonna do this. Like you're gonna have to take your clothes off and then cross the spawn.
I do like that dedication to what is just a terrible idea in terms of user experience, but I can't submit it as the winner because like it sounds hateful. And
but that's the point of the game. It's not hateful. It's part of the game's design.
No,
otherwise, like difficring in Souls games will be hateful.
It sounds it sounds horrid.
No, Connor.
And Ring Fit. I mean, when you take it, the actual game bit of Ring Fit is, I mean, that's an RPG that is worse than Skylanders, isn't it? It's a nominal sort of Ring Fit is a fitness product.
Change people's lives in a good way, right? It's not just like
granted, but
it's not just like I made some friends playing World of Warcraft, right?
Yeah, but
which I admit some people need that, and that's good for them, right?
Yeah.
But this is like a proper. People have had transformed their lives because of this game.
It's true. I bought Ring Fit and I played it for like a month and I gained 2 stone.
Just in sheer muscle.
It's like now I can eat whatever I want because I'm doing.
Yeah, I walked up a hill yesterday and then had a KFC.
What would you? So the genre, like the Skylanders and those games, the genre used to be called Toys to Life.
Yeah.
So if you were to make a Ring Fit adventure, like what would you call it? Would you call it like a Poise or Toil to Life?
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Joints to Life.
That's good. Sure.
What would you?
That's the kick.
What would you call it?
Strife to Life. It's a great product, and it helped a lot of people out during COVID as well. It was it was a real standout thing during the pandemic. It kept a lot of people fit and healthy while inside. It probably contributed in and of itself to quite a lot of Switch sales because of when it came out, etc. Not denying it's a good product, not denying it's an important product. But you
could do that. Sure, you could sort of achieve that with something like Beat Saber, which some people have.
It's also a VR game because in VR games you get the same effect, right? Like I was playing Pistol Whip, which is a proper good VR game, but you really have a workout doing it because, again, if you're not someone that moves a lot, suddenly any form of movement is exercise.
Slightly getting off topic though, aren't we? Because the podcast. The title of this podcast is not the best game where you work up a sweat in real life, is it?
Yeah. I've got it called Best Game where you stay wet for a bit after getting wet.
Hang on.
That's what you sent me in my meeting invite, which is literally here in front of me. Best game where you stay wet for a bit after getting wet. That's what you told me.
Tom's right, then that's turned the entire thing on its head, actually.
That's what you sent me. I said book it in, and you sent that to my calendar.
Best game where your character stays wet for a bit after they get wet. It's very clearly written in the Slack. The best game where your character stays wet for a bit after they get wet.
Slack. As I said,
I was invited depending on where you look is the crux of your...
No, we're
not
invited on this very late.
We're not having it.
And this is what was that? This is what happened.
It was discussed in the Slack first. I'm not having that. We're not submitting Teams invites as evidence, right? Okay, so Divinity, which Divinity Original Sin are you submitting?
2.
Connor? Right, Divinity Original Sin 2 is a great game and it wins.
Yeah.
That's the best one.
I'm winning too much. I can't stop. I'm too good at this podcast
I'm actually annoyed that Connor's won again because Connor...
I don't even understand.
I really need to start going back to those really niche, weird games.
This is just... It just goes against... I don't even understand what's going on.
I think you've actually... You've kind of... I don't know if this is actually illegal, what you're doing, but it feels like you've gone beyond mere, like, bants to be like, this is, like, something that I need to raise with some authority.
What are you on about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Connor picked the best game, which uses
dismiss
elemental
what I've said
properties
just without
in its
thinking
combat
about
system.
it. You've thought about it before I explained it, and you were like, "Nah, not winning." And then as I explained it, you were like, "Oh, actually, he's got a point there."
Yeah.
You've just brushed that aside because you just already made your mind up, right? You'd already decided, and you didn't want to look like a fool.
Well, no, because then
to be clear, in the past, Jim has heard a suggestion from someone in like 10 minutes into a podcast and been like, you can see it on his face. He's like, yeah, that's great. That's what you've seen him do that for like a year and a half now.
I have to say, right? No, I've always been consistent, right? First of all, it's like how well does it fit the brief, or use the brief, or modify the brief to its own ends, right?
I got sent perfectly. Right? It's exactly on brief.
Okay. Firstly, is it clever with the brief? Is it accurate to the brief? And the second concern is it a good game, and is it better than the other two? Divinity Original Sin 2 is a better game than fucking Ring Fit, and based on Sharif's description, it's a better game than Scum. Because it doesn't make you take your fucking clothes off.
Exactly. How is that not convincing enough on its own?
I feel
so many games have this element, like Bioshock. Yeah. If you fight, like the first enemy that you'll come across in Bioshock, in the first one, he's standing in a fucking in water in a pond, and then you shoot electricity at him. Like so many games has this interactability of like electricity and water work together, fire and oil, whatever. That's not novel. Taking your pants off to cross.
That guy climbed out of the pond and was like, "God, I'm really heavy," and he took his fucking clothes off. Should be staring at his amazingly hyped up super pumper fucking PC. Next
break the ladder.
Amazing.
You break the ladder because you're too heavy because you're holding so much water. Because you just waded through a pond. That's simulation. That's worth talking about. Throwing electricity at people.
If I played a game where I was so heavy I broke a ladder, I would turn it off and go to bed. I think I'd be like, this is too much.
But I bet part of you would be like,
I'd laugh my ass off. This was like the funniest thing in the world.
I'm sorry, but Connor wins. And I know that's hard for everyone, but it's hard for me as well. Because I genuinely take a lot of pleasure in telling Connor that he hasn't won, because he always kicks off, and I find it really funny. If you're not a subscriber, this is the point where we're going to leave you. I do apologize, but Connor has won with Divinity Original Sin 2, which is the best game where your character gets wet for a bit and then stays wet after they're not wet anymore, or whatever. Let's move on.
If you want to listen to this next bit, you've got to pay.
Yeah.
Go to the website. Go to the website, vg247.com. Click on support us. If you're on a mobile, you've got to click the little menu button, then it appears. Right? Click that. Pay £3 a month or 30 a year. We've got a small bunch of them now, people. Thank you.
Thank you.
We could do with more.
I'm very pleased with our small band of loyal supporters. And if you are one of those people, this is what you're paying for.
Oh my God. God damn it.